Morning and Happy New Year, you guys. So, um, so we made it through 2020. It was felt a bit touch and go there at many intervals, and here we are, starting fresh, some new year, which may be a lot more like the old year than we than we want to hope, But it's always a chance to kind of reset. My wife and I have had for the last few years, we've done a little New Year's ritual where we do a bit of a retrospective and
Oh,
on major events and look back at resolutions from last year and grade ourselves and look, set out some resolutions for the coming year. And so it was fun to go through and do that yesterday. Um, I did read a little bit about New Year's resolutions, that they have a better success rate than they're reputed to have. About 40% after 6 months seems to be the word on the street from folks who study these kinds of things. But um, nevertheless, the idea of setting out an intention about how we live and how we operate and how we act, and making a decision to adjust that is 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 powerful, right? It's just part of our human strategic thinking. It's part of how we operate. We can envision some goal and then take steps systematically towards accomplishing that. And a lot of New Year's resolutions, they're more like, how we go about our life. But uh, at least in my working world, I tend to think about two things. There's what we want to accomplish or get or experience or do, and then it's how we want to go about those things. And the how is the process part. So often we think more, and they kind of get to the difference between subject and object. So the object, we tend to think in terms of object, like what it is that we want to do. Thank you. So we tend to think more in terms of what it is that we want to do or get or be, like an object, and less in terms of how, because the how is always, there is some expression, you can't see your own face. The how is always a bit hidden. You can only see it, in a mirror indirectly. All of the hows about how we're thinking and how we're going about things. So a lot of New Year's resolutions deal with changing, how we approach other people or how we're going to go about our daily life. Should we integrate more exercise in our process? Should we meditate more? Should we read more books, or, do spend less time on the computer late at night, or whatever's on your mind? So changing, we can approach both accomplishing external activities and accomplishing internal change in a similar way. They're both developing some vision for what it is that we want to accomplish, and then remembering that goal, and then carrying it out systematically. It's not a complicated formula, but the problem lies often with not having confidence that we can actually accomplish those goals, or we set out goals that are too ambitious, or we forget those goals, or we have too many competing priorities. And so nevertheless, our resolutions tend to fall apart, uh, often because there's just a bit too much going on. So I wanted to talk a bit about, just how we approach making decisions and carrying them out. And we can begin with a bit of meditation just to reset our minds, just to settle into this this class this morning. So with the meditation, as usual, what we can do is just to find a comfortable position for our body, and maybe we stretch our body a little bit if that helps us to feel reset. Then we just take a deep breath in and out. Another deep breath and just inviting ourselves to relax. Another deep breath, just asking ourselves what is important right now. And when we ask ourselves this question, what is important right now, this is a clarifying question for us. This allows us to sort through our priorities, determine what we want to pay attention to right now. Just even asking ourselves that question, what is really important right now, is like cleaning up our mind, cleaning up our intentions, which naturally gets cluttered with lots of wishes. And just like our room will naturally tend to attract dust and clutter if it's not maintained, so our mind naturally tends to attract lots of wishes, different things we're paying attention to, half-started projects, lots of small worries, fears. So when we're meditating, one thing we're doing is just cleaning up our mind a bit, allowing some of the extraneous things to settle down. And we can do this just by paying attention to what's happening right now in our body and in the space around us. So we feel our body, what's comfortable or uncomfortable, how we're sitting. And we try to feel the entire body, just like we can feel the clothes on our body spread out everywhere, so we can feel our entire body. and allow our attention to just spread. And with every breath, the feelings in our body change just slightly. We just try to feel this change and movement as each cycle of breath happens. And as we pay attention to our body, if we feel any areas of tension, we can just allow them to relax. And then we can develop some recollection of kindness of others, how others have helped us get to where we are today in our life. And with this feeling of gratitude, we can ask ourselves, what is the best result that could come from our time together this morning, this brief time in meditation? What good results could eventually unfold from this? And we hold that intention in our mind. And then with that intention, we can open our eyes and arise from our meditation. So, the analogy of cleaning cleaning our room with dust accumulating and so forth. I was mentioned that partly because the first preparation in the traditional system of meditation that I was taught, the first preparatory practice before you meditate, before you do anything else, is to tidy up the room in which you're meditating. And I'm actually a little bit behind on that myself. So that's a good thing for me to do after this class. But it's a preparatory practice for meditation. So some people have a natural inclination towards cleaning, some people less so. The point of this and why this is a preparatory practice for meditation is several points. One of which is that anybody can do it, and it's very easy to understand, very easy to practice. So it's very inclusive, regardless of whether you feel like you're good at meditation or not, right? You can tidy up the space in which you want to meditate. And one of the reasons practically is when there's a lot of distracting things around, when there's a lot of things around, they capture our attention. And naturally, we tend, as human beings, we tend to accumulate stuff, right? And so we just got through the primary stuff accumulation phase of the year, where the world tries to accumulate a lot more stuff because we didn't have enough stuff already. But when we accumulate stuff, then each of those things, often the things that we accumulate, they've got a bit of a promise behind them, or a bit of an intention behind them. Or like I've been buying books. I had gone through a long phase of getting rid of all books and so forth. Now I've been buying books recently, and my wife's giving me a hard time because I'm buying them faster than I'm reading them. But each of those books is like a promise. It's like some determination. Oh, I should read that. Oh, I should read that. Oh, I need to do that. So sometimes the things around us can be reminding us of something we need to do and filling our mind with a lot of promises, but often it can just feel a bit heavy and a bit overwhelming, like there's just too much stuff to do. And there's just too much stuff around us. And so our mind gets a bit busy and cluttered and a little bit weighed down by the weight of all of that stuff. So I'm not saying we go to this extreme, but if you think about these Japanese Zen temples, and how pristine they are. So Japanese Zen temples are temples that sort of brought together Buddhism and Zen, which is a particular school, and then Japanese culture. And it's like this perfect storm of like, let's make everything perfect and minimal. And so whatever that, so it's like this perfect minimalist space, rock garden where it's just rocks, and raked, and just empty floor. And I'm not saying we need to go to that extreme, but people just like visiting those places, right? They just, a friend of mine was in Hawaii and sent me a photo of a Japanese temple in Hawaii. And people just love visiting those places because they're very serene. Like you just get a special feeling coming to those places because it's unusually quiet. And it's similar, having a clean space is similar to having a quiet space, right? It's just a little bit unusual. It's like normally there's a TV on or a radio on or dogs barking or kids running around. There's a lot of noise in our world. So you come to a quiet space or you come to a clean space and all of a sudden it's like, okay, we can settle a little bit. And meditation is mostly basically just about settling. It's about reducing the volume in our mind, the volume of activity and noise and so forth. And then it's about setting a beneficial direction in our mind. And when we talk about reducing the volume in our mind, there are a lot of intense things, and everything's relative, There's heavy metal music kind of intense, there's construction and war kind of intense, and then there's like just regular music and regular food and regular daily activities and busy activities, and all of those are, contrast those with falling asleep, right? In a state of sleep, it's just silence, right? Even if there's music playing in the background, your mind stops paying attention to the music and your mind just retreats and withdraws. And there's like a zeroing out and a resetting of the mind. And our mind needs to go into sleep every night to heal itself. I think the modern understanding of this is that your brain actually shrinks. So the cerebrospinal fluid can wash away all the toxins in your brain. And so your brain needs to shrink by stop being so busy. So we want, it doesn't sound like a good thing to have your brain shrink, right? But the size of your brain doesn't matter. It's how well you're thinking, how well you're functioning. And sometimes when you get too busy, your mind is not functioning very well. And so the reason we need to sleep every day is to clear out some of the toxins in our mind. Because otherwise, if you go without sleeping for a long time, you'll end up hallucinating. It has a heavy toll on your physical health and your mental health. It'll lead to hallucinations, and because these toxins in your brain, they'll actually accumulate and cause you to misperceive things. And but there's a similar sense where when we're too busy all the time in our daily life, we have difficulty making good decisions. We have difficulty making wise decisions. And so sometimes we act in ways that are not really in our own best interest or others' best interest. So meditation really helps in three ways. It helps us to make wise decisions that are in our own and others' best interest, long-term interest. It helps us to feel peaceful while we're doing it. It helps us to feel happy and peaceful while we're actually engaged in meditation. And it helps us to see clearly and understand deeper subjects, deeper, more profound things. So these three levels helps us to make good decisions, helps us to experience happiness and peace right now, and helps us to develop wisdom and insights. And that is, that's kind of the whole of, that's everything. That kind of encompasses everything that you might need to do. If you just go through your life making very good decisions all the time with a peaceful, happy mind and having some wise insights, I think you've just sailed through life in the smoothest possible way. I'm not sure what else you'd particularly need. If you're poor and you have that situation, I would say that's still a perfectly successful life. If you're rich and you have that situation, perfectly successful life. If you're single, if you're married, if you've got kids, if you've no kids, all of those things, if you can sail through life and always make good decisions, always have a happy, peaceful mind and gain wisdom and insights, you have succeeded at this game of life, regardless of what the externalities might look like. The making resolutions thing that we do at New Year's is about making a good decision. It's like, okay, all right, maybe we could have done things a little bit better last year. Let's start fresh. Let's make some decisions about how we want to go about this year, and let's see if we can carry them out. And so we make thousands of decisions every day, right? And every action, should we say something? Should we not say something? What should we say? All of these are little decisions. But some decisions, but when we stop to make a big decision in our life, and with a lot of intention behind it, it's because it's important for us. It's because we recognize that it's important, and it's a decision we need to protect in some way. So if you have a big decision that you make, the risk is that you won't carry it through. And in a sense, it's like having a plant that you get a plant, but then the plant dies, right? Because you didn't quite take care of it well enough. Too much light, not enough light, too much water, not enough water, whatever. So we want to learn how to sustain these decisions, sustain our resolutions, sustain our good intentions. And one of the things that can cause our good intentions and good decisions to falter, and for us to not carry through with them, is there's too much else going on. There's too many other decisions going on. There's too much clutter going on. There's too many other activities. And so simplifying our life in whatever ways we can is powerful, and saying no to possible activities and tasks is a powerful way to approach that. There's an expression in the IT industry, actually. Stop starting and start finishing. Stop starting and start finishing. It's easier to start a new activity than it is to finish something. And so there is a tendency to accumulate half-finished things in our life. And that is, I am at least as guilty of that as anyone else that I know, I think. But it's a natural tendency, just because it is easier to start something new, and it's a kind of fun to start something new, and it's kind of hard to finish something. And in fact, finishing things, like, when are they ever finished? So it's like if you're writing something or painting something, when is it ever finished? At some point, it's a skill to learn how to say, okay, this is good enough. It's like, okay, it's good enough. And to stop and to move on to something else. So not taking on too many simultaneous activities helps us to focus. But some aspect of carrying out a resolution is just remembering it, right? Just remembering it. So having something that we keep with us as some reminder of the main things we want to carry out, that can help to remind us. For example, every day we can return to some list of decisions and determinations we've made. But then there's a third aspect, which is that sometimes we get wishes where it's a bit hard to control, right? Like some wish comes up and we just really want to do something. Part of our mind says, okay, I should meditate today. But another part of our mind says, well, maybe I just look at, read this or work on that, or, do something, eat something, So these wishes can come up and they can be very strong. And they can, every time we have a wish, in a sense, that wish is promising us that we'll be happier if we follow through with that wish. And so again, like I mentioned a few weeks back, every wish that arises is kind of like an advertisement. It's like food available in your fridge right now for free. And you're like, free? Really? I love free stuff. Work that you should have done last month. Uh-oh, That's the sort of terrorizing advertisement. Have you done that work yet? Something new you could learn about to impress your friends. I want to impress my friends. So it's like all these little advertisements popping up in our mind. They're generated by ourselves. Like it's our own mind that generates these advertisements. And sometimes it can feel really hard to resist. Like, how could I possibly walk away from this sale? 50% off. How could I ever walk away from this sale? So these little advertisements in our mind, they can be hard to resist. All of these ideas. So what meditation is, it's about letting some of that noise settle down in our mind. And then gradually it's about harmonizing our mind. And because meditation isn't just stopping thinking, it's also about focusing your mind in a beneficial way. So it's like when the meditations we've been guiding have mostly been on the body itself. So it's bringing our attention to the body. But then what happens is there's a resonance that can build with that. If you know what I mean with resonance, like hitting a tuning fork, it sort of resonates with itself and the vibration sustains itself. There's a resonance means, where there's a sound and it builds on itself. And there's a natural harmoniousness to it. So there's a resonance inside our mind that can arise when we allow the noise to settle down and just focus on one thing that is actually going to take us in the direction of happiness. So every wish we have promises us happiness. We would be happy if we did this, happy if we did this. Everything's always promising happiness or freedom from suffering. But when we're meditating, what we're doing is we're harmonizing our mind. And when our mind becomes harmonious and peaceful, it's naturally happy. It's naturally strong. It's naturally powerful. And so when we settle our mind in meditation, we're doing something that is really fulfilling that wish. It is something that is definitely taking us in the direction that we want to go in 2021 and 22 and 2023 and beyond. Having a harmonious, peaceful, strong mind is definitely the right direction. And so when we're meditating, it goes both ways. You have to intentionally turn your mind away from distractions. But then meditation can gradually become more self-sustaining, where when you get into it, you realize it is more interesting than the distractions around you. But it's got to go both ways. It needs your help, right? Your attention needs your help to sort of rein it in, your conscious help. And then so it's something. So it's a natural process. It's a little bit like I was saying on Tuesday's class that it's a little bit like cultivating a plant, right? You've got to kind of go with the grain of the plant. If you're trying to raise tomato plants and tie them up to a vine or something like that, you've got to kind of go with where they're going, where their stem is going, but you can nudge them a little bit. So we have to work with our own mind and figure out what helps us to get into a peaceful state, what helps us to relax some of our worries, what we'd like to meditate on. And we can build this skill, increasingly working with our own mind, this skill of learning to focus our attention where it's most useful, where it's most beneficial, and not allowing it to be pulled away, which helps us when we come out of meditation, just making better decisions in general, which helps us to break this temptation to follow every idea that comes into our head. And so when you're not following every idea that comes into your head, it's a lot easier to hold to other determinations that you may have made. So, so that was what I wanted to talk about, just sort of grounding the discussion about meditation grounding the discussion about resolutions in how meditation can help us to have a more peaceful, relaxed mind and more easily carry out any other intentions that we may have. But So why don't we take a little bit of time just to settle in for a final meditation now. And in this meditation, we can just begin to notice how these temptations, these distracting ideas arise, but we don't have to follow them. That can be our focus for this last session. So again, just start by taking a deep breath in and out to reset. And then another deep breath in and out, just inviting ourselves to relax. And then a breath, asking ourselves, what is important right now? And we can bring our attention to our body. Becoming aware of the feelings inside our body and noticing how they change slightly every time we breathe. And even though our body is with us all the time and our breath is moving all the time, it's natural for our mind to have distracting ideas, other ideas arise even when we're trying to pay attention to our body. You just try to notice any mental distractions, thinking of them as advertisements that we can safely ignore. And we can think whatever intentions we have for our life, whatever determinations or decisions, they will be easier for us to carry out if our mind is quieter, more peaceful, more focused, less distracted. And then we can think, just through this brief time here, our mind has changed. We've undertaken the actions of paying attention, listening, meditating. And this alone changes our mind, changes our future direction. So we think, may this brief period of time lead to the best possible results for myself and others. And then with this good motivation, we can open our eyes and arise from our meditation.